Welcome, guys. Let's wait maybe 1 or 2 more minutes to see if some more people join in, and then we can begin. Alright, I think we can start, and hopefully some more people show up. First of all, we have some general updates about Matchbox. So we've had an awesome workshop yesterday with Peteris from Yali Finance, talking about how keepers can perform automated tasks in games, and also a bit about state management for that. It was really great. We had some very good discussions. You can find a recording of that in the announcements channel. Just wanted to remind you if you haven't watched it yet. Then we have established a multisig to custody funds that we might raise in investments, or also to manage investments that we will make. So that's pretty good. And then the next update we have is that we are looking for a product/tech lead for Matchbox, so we can better support our builders and get some structure into the working groups. We're really looking for someone who can manage these different products and can help support us. We have written a short notion about that, that outlines the tasks and responsibilities and benefits and salary and so on, that we can share. So if you know someone who might be a good fit, who can coordinate devs and who has Solidity and Cairo experience and who's into Starknet or ZK rollups, then don't hesitate to recommend them. Right, so that's it for general Matchbox updates. Then we can move on in our agenda. Let me see, do we have... I think Tony is not here. Then we can start with Bull, who would like to present something about his procedural world generation efforts. You can request to speak, Bull, and I will bring you up. Awesome, I got you.
Hello? You hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. I prepared like some, really bare bones slides that I can share. Let me see if I can I share screen?
I don't think you can share screen on the stage channel,
Okay,
but yeah, it's kind of inconvenient. I don't know why Discord doesn't allow it, but it's very inconvenient.
alright, it's all good. So yeah, I've been working on like on-chain procedural terrain generation. And yeah, I guess I'll start by kind of presenting the goal or like the I guess bigger vision, and then I can kind of go into like progress and things that need to be done. So the first or kind of like the goal here is to create like on-chain Minecraft. And what does that mean? It's basically like a shared, world where all of the like user actions are verified on chain. And so if you mine a block or if you like place a block, like that kind of stuff is validated on chain. So like you can't mine a diamond block if if the block is really like a dirt block, and you can't place a block in a spot if there's already a block there. So that kind of thing, and then you can extend it beyond that, but that would just kind of be like the first step. And so like, how do you actually like do this on chain, or like what does it mean for this to be done on chain? And kind of like the first part is you want to have your terrain generation algorithm on chain. So this, like in the case of like Starknet, this would just be a like like a Cairo program that or like a Cairo function rather, that takes in like coordinates, so like x, y, z, and then spits out like what block is at that location. So you could have like, if we call our like terrain generation function g, then like g of 0, 0, 200 could be like an air block, g of 20, 20, 50 could be stone, g of 40, 40, 100 could be dirt, and so on. And then like anytime that somebody makes an update, like say mines a block, that kind of like update is also stored on chain. So yeah, I can talk more about like the like technical details later if anybody's interested. And so then that's kind of like the on-chain part, and then in order to turn this into an actual like usable proof of concept, there's kind of two more components. And the first one is a front end that actually resembles a game. So it could be very simple like Minecraft clone. And then the second part is a backend server that generates and serves terrain, as well as listens for on-chain updates to the terrain, like mining and placing blocks. And the reason the server is necessary is kind of like twofold. So the first one is that like you don't want users to have to generate the terrain from scratch every time, and like even if you do like cache, the terrain, like that it can still be pretty slow if like the terrain generation is done in there like locally. And the second reason, and this is the more important reason, is because um, if you like one of the issues here is that like you can mirror the terrain generation algorithm, so you can have it in Cairo and then you can have it in a different language in order to actually render the terrain on chain. But that alone isn't enough, because you also need to take into account like other changes that people made, right? So like if I mine a block, then the terrain is no longer the same as what it was before that. And so if you only consider like the like terrain generation algorithm, you'll miss that. And so the server would have to watch for like would have to watch the contract for updates like mining and placing blocks, and then like update the database based on that. And again, I can go into more detail of, about how that about how that would work. And so in terms of like what I've done so far, I have like a very basic contract prototype. So I have like a super basic terrain generation algorithm, and it's literally just like a stone terrain. Uh, yeah, it's basically it for now, but you know, you could extend it and like make it more rich very easily. Um, and then users can also mine and place blocks, so that stuff, you know, already works. And now I started working on a 3D noise implementation in Cairo, and this will allow for, you know, cave generation, like ore generation. And yeah, and then in terms of next steps, it's to build a front end and to set up a server for generating and serving terrain. And then also to re-implement the terrain generation algorithm in a backend language. Um, so yeah, those are kind of like the main things to be done that that I haven't started working on yet, or haven't like gotten other people to help me out with yet. But that's basically it. If anybody has any questions, then you know, feel free to ask.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, if anybody has questions, please request to speak, and I will bring you on stage. In terms of next steps, like you said, do you have any like concrete ideas how people from Matchbox could help you out in some way?
Yeah, if you're a backend dev, then yeah, I'm not a backend guy, and so I'd love to, you know, have a chat and like, you know, get advice. And if you're like interested in actually like helping out by building out the backend, that'd be even better. And then in terms of front end, Lowitz is interested in like building that out, and he also has some experience making like similar, you know, things in the past, like web-based like 3D games. So yeah.
Cool, thank you. Yoni, you joined. Do you want to say anything, or can I move on to the next item on the agenda?
Oh yes, I think it's a mistake that I came to the stage, so you can move on.
What do you mean is a mistake?
I was saying that it's a mistake that I came to the stage instead of being in the audience.
Oh, I see. No problem. I think Tony is here now, so Tony, if you'd like to present your imperfect information protocol, you can request to speak, and I will bring you on stage.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry for being late to the call. I had kind of a rough night last night. We're dog sitting this dog, and it got sick in the middle of the night, so I was up like most of the night. So forgive me if I sound a little bit tired. Um, anyway, to talk about the imperfect information protocol. So this project, I think, is a little bit earlier stage than some of the other projects that have been presented so far. Like, it's definitely still in the research phase, although I do have sort of an idea about how to build version 1 now. But first of all, let me introduce what it is. So the idea is, can we use zero knowledge proofs in some way to give an NFT a hidden attribute? And by hidden attribute, obviously there's different levels of strength to that. The most hidden would be you as the owner cannot figure out what the attribute is, and also no one else can. A weaker version of that would be you as the owner can figure out what your NFT's hidden attribute is, but you can't figure it out about anyone else's NFT. So it sounds a little crazy at first, I guess, but let me just kind of share with you guys the idea for the initial design. So the initial design, and with this one, this is going to be like a very zero knowledge heavy project, and actually a lot of the work will not even take place in Cairo. Probably the bulk of this system will be built in Rust, I imagine, just because of the Artworks library. And, you know, we can build a verifier in Cairo, and in theory, we could build a verifier on any, you know, any chain. So, the current idea for an initial design is this: when you mint an NFT, um, you generate a secret that goes in the database of the creator of the application the NFT is used for. You generate a public attribute on the NFT, and then you also use the owner's private key as an input. And every time that you want to do an interaction that uses this hidden attribute, um, you do what's called a secure, auditable, multi-party computation to reconstruct the hidden attribute without revealing any of the secret inputs. I feel like I may be kind of going off on a technical tangent here, just because I've been so deep in thinking about it. Maybe it would be better for me to start a little bit earlier to sort of motivate the problem. Yoni or Swag, what do you guys think? Like,
Yeah, I think it would be cool to maybe say 2 words about the potential use cases that would be possible if that would
yeah,
be completed, and then like give people some clue, and then speak it. Yeah, but that's just my opinion.
Hey Tony,
yeah,
real quick if I can, I think what would help is like I think what really made it click for me when we talked yesterday was when you made the point that like implementing something like this in your game from scratch is like a huge feat of engineering and like a big time sink. And the idea is like if you
yeah.
can empower game creators to be able to include this kind of mechanic in their own game, that's sort of like a big motivation and makes things very powerful.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really helpful. So if anybody in the audience is familiar with current games that do something like this, the number one example is Zed Run, which is like a horse racing game, and basically the way that that game works is, you know, some extrinsic qualities of the NFT, and then it has some intrinsic qualities that determine how it performs in races that you don't know, but they're not stored on chain at all. They're stored off chain in a database and kept private, so they're not really part of the NFT. Um, and that pretty much has to be the core focus of the Zed game, just to basically have this imperfect information element, and you discover how your horses are at racing. So the idea is that if you can turn this into a protocol that's modular and that also uses zero knowledge proofs to do it in public instead of in private, you can allow for the creation of much more complicated imperfect information games than would have ever existed before. Um, yeah, and probably, you know, in its full form, like a hidden attribute that's hidden from everyone, this has applications outside of games too, I would imagine. Um, so anyway, the stage of the project is reading papers every day, which you can tell because I jumped right into like sort of the technical aspect of it, and putting together a design for building it. If you want to see the paper or anything on auditable multi-party computation, just message me. There's one from last year that I think I'll try and use the implementation from, and it'll probably be one of the first times that this technique has been used outside of academia. So I think it's pretty exciting. So I guess if anyone has any questions or any other part of this that they would like me to talk about, let me know.
You're welcome to just drop a link to the paper in like primitives discussion or something, so people can check it out. Yeah, thank you for the presentation. It's super fascinating. And if I understood it correctly, it's like still very early stage. Like you're trying to figure out a design how to actually build it. But once you've got that figured out, then Matchbox can potentially help you out with some things, which is great. So yeah, if anybody has questions, feel free to request to speak. And if not, then we will.
I, I have a, I mean, I know that it's very early, but I have like a basic question. So, how you imagine game developers like interact with it? Like let's say, what kind of a game should the game developer be in order to anonymize his game? Like, let's take a simple example of poker. Um, so if a a on-chain poker game, so there is let's say two players, and the game developers like the state of each player should be hidden, like what kind of
Yep.
hand. So how could this protocol could be used by someone that just created a poker game, for example?
So basically, each time let's say you're playing Texas Hold'em, first of all, so we actually specify a type of poker, um, and each time a new hand starts, you would basically generate NFTs that represent the hand that each player holds, and the way it's going to represent the hand is a hash between the player's private key and the public key will represent their hand. So basically, they could reconstruct what their hand is, right, using their private key, but their opponent could never reconstruct it. Um, and then once you go through the rounds of betting, at the end, whenever it's time to show your hand, or whenever someone folds, I guess, a secure multi-party computation takes place where each player in the poker hand provides their private key as secret input, and the protocol will generate a proof about who won the hand. So hopefully this makes sense. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, and then another follow-up question. So, if I was a developer of the game, I'm using the protocol in order to deploy my Cairo code, or I'm coming with a game that is already running and anonymize it after, like for this
Yeah.
specific game.
So there's lots of different levels of user or dev experience that you could have interacting with this protocol. I think ideally you want some interface or API or something where the dev can describe the nature of the anonymization, like what it is that they need from the protocol, and then just plug the protocol into their game and use it. Because now, like if you want to build a poker game using this, you don't have to worry about like keeping the hand secret, building a database, and any of this stuff. It takes a lot of that away, and you can focus on the actual gameplay of poker. Um,
Nice, nice.
yeah, so I would just say like there's lots of different levels to it. Probably at the beginning it won't be like super user friendly to use, just because it's going to be really experimental and kind of like researching to see if we can even make it work. Um, but down the road, yeah, it should be really easy for a developer to describe the type of hidden attributes that they want, whether they want the owner to know them or not, and then include them in their game, and just kind of have it spawn out for them. That's the idea, I guess.
Sweet. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing how this will evolve, and wishing you best of luck in building it. I think we can then, so these were like two new like primitives we discussed, like the procedural world generation and this imperfect information protocol. And now we move on to some updates on the existing working groups, some of the stuff that you guys have been up to. I'd like to start with the solve to mint stuff. There's been lots of things going on there. Dirkid, if you would like to talk about it and briefly summarize what's been happening, that would be great.
Yeah, so real quickly, we are in the process of trying to get out sort of like our first um, iteration or genesis, like sort of solve to mint challenge. So very quickly, the entire idea, right, is to provide sort of like a fun learning playground for people who are pretty good at math and logic solving and programming, maybe in another language, to try their hand at learning Cairo a little bit. So for the first iteration, you would go like read a Cairo contract. It's a physics, sort of like physics simulation where you want to get a score, um, and then you input your solution into like a front end. It's like a, I think you give it like a velocity and a direction or whatever, and then it runs the simulation and gives you a score. Um, and we are working on building out basically the front end for that with like an instruction set, and like an article and a GitHub, so everything's very like well branded and clear. And making some minor tweaks to Guilty Gears' like original prototype contract, so everyone maybe starts on a little bit of a fair playing field. Um, but yeah, so we're looking at launching probably like, I don't know, maybe in a little bit like 10-ish days from now. Um, so it should be fun, and then hopefully we'll iterate from there. It's really about it. It's should be a fun effort.
Oh, sorry, I think I was muted.
Yeah.
Thank you for updating us. I think it's going to be really great to see how people will solve these puzzles, and I think it's a great tool to onboard more Cairo devs and drive some hype around that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really great. Then the next thing is an update on VRF stuff. We have 0x Nonsense on stage already. Can you update us a bit on what the VRF front has been up to?
Yeah, sure thing, Swag. So I see some new people, so I'm Nonsense. I'm building verified random function in Cairo for games of all kinds. So I thought I'd just give, sort of like a week check-in since our last meeting. The main thing I've been working on is a math library to support BLS 12 signature verifications in Cairo. The sort of main thing I've been working through is the size of the signatures for BLS are 384 bits, which is significantly larger than what the BigInt library supports. So this week I've been moving, I basically created a bigger int library that is going to now, I'm piecing back into the BLS 12 library that I've already had. So with that sort of migration coming or progressing well, I should be writing an article and also releasing BLS 12 library, maybe this weekend, sometime next week, which is, I think, first major step in getting this VRF done. Then sort of the other thing that I saw that's within sort of a VRF context is upcoming version of Cairo should be supporting historical block hashes. That I think that's about a month away or so. That's not necessarily something that is relevant to the VRF that I've been working on, but it's just something I thought I would let people know is in the pipeline for Starknet.
Awesome. If I got that correctly, you're going to release a library and an article over the weekend, I think?
Yeah, that's, yes, sort of optimistic. That's my goal. But yeah, so essentially, once I get this first this library complete, I'll write an article for it, share it with you guys, and um, we can spread the word on that because the math library is, you know, important for our purposes, but people across Cairo, StarkNet ecosystem should be interested in that. I know Lewis is going to be for sure.
Awesome. Sounds like great progress to me. I'm sure people will find that very useful. I think we have one more contributor who's working on. I'm not sure if he's working on VRF specifically, but definitely something about Z Casino and maybe some games for that. Jake, if you would like to come on stage, request to speak, you can give us a brief update on what you've been up to. I hope I pronounced your name correctly, Jik, J-I-K. There's a button in Discord that's called request to speak, and then I can bring you on stage. I can also invite you to speak.
Okay. I mean, I haven't actually really been working on much. Yeah, I pronounce the J as like in German, so like yick. But anyway, yeah, I'm more of a mathematician, but I'm kind of generically interested in like random number generation. I haven't actually built anything, but I just looked at that post on the VRF. Yeah.
Sure, no problem. But maybe you can like team up with Zero X Nonsense and Lois and kind of see where that takes you.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And I think there's also some of the influence guys are also working on VRF, and they're also already collaborating with Zero X Nonsense, I think. So I think having like a bigger VRF group could be super beneficial.
Okay.
All right. Next up, we have some updates from the .NET SDK with Francesco.
Okay, I'm here. So this week we continue to work on the .NET SDK, and I think we met our candidate for the undertaken work, which is swap, which is not in this scope. And also I think I brought a document where I outlined basically the goals of the library, and I provided a sort of like a set of deliverables that the contributors will have to deliver to consider the project successful. And so we said next week I'm going to meet more people about the SDK or .NET, which I think is getting a lot of people excited. Mostly because I think one of the goals is that we want the game developers to be able to build a game in an hackathon that uses StarkNet. And so if you can provide them with a very good quality and easy to use library for .NET, it means they can still use the tools they know. So for example, Unity 3D to build their games, and then on top of that they can add NFTs or like ERC20 token. And so as part of this discussion, we discussed a bit what do we want from the SDK. And we decided that the best course of action for now is to build the low-level library, so the one that interacts with StarkNet, so interacts with the StarkNet gateway and signs transactions and interacts with smart contracts, which are wallets, also include wallets. And so we decided that would be the first step to take. And then we want to provide a nice way to interact with smart contract using, for example, typing. So something like the Ethereum API, if you're familiar with that, or TypeChain, if you're familiar with the library for TypeScript. And then after we have that, we can also build a set of libraries to interact with NFTs and interact with ERC20 and package them in a way that are easy to use from Unity 3D, which is not exactly like any other .NET project, it's slightly different. So I think at the moment we still have not started writing any code yet, and we're looking for contributors. So if you know anyone that likes to program games and is familiar with Unity 3D, I think they know everything that we need to move this project forward.
Awesome, thank you. We're definitely also looking for someone who might be a grantee who can work with Francesco to build this stuff. So if you maybe you might know somebody who's interested, then just tell them to say hi in our Discord, and we can set that up. And I think in terms of updates, that's basically it. Do we have anybody else who would like to speak or discuss anything, or would like to add anything, present anything that they've been thinking about? Then please feel free to request to speak, and I can bring you on stage. Otherwise, I think we are done for today's call. Okay, looks like we're done. As always, this call will be recorded. I will post the recording in the announcements channel, and I think all the links to papers, etc., are already in the Discord in the primitives discussion channel about the Imperfect information protocol. And that's it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for presenting. Thank you for listening. And see you next time. Bye bye.